Hello and welcome to StarStream Gamer channel. This time I decided to summarize what AMD CPUs are the best for their price in the end of 2020. I have already made a video about how many CPU cores you will need in 2021. 6-core 12-thread CPU is the minimum you need to consider in my opinion. And it looks like multi-core gaming era has already begun with Cyberpunk 2077 release. Neither of 4-core CPUs, even Ryzen 3 3300X, can provide smooth experience in this game, while all relatively modern 12-thread CPUs manage to provide pretty stable frame time and frame rate without any major problems. So Ryzen 2600 remains the best budget gaming CPU, even in the end of 2020. If you overclock its cores and of course memory, 2600 will provide you with consistent frame rate, mostly above 60 frames per second, without any hitches or stutters, unless the game engine itself is broken, like Unreal Engine 3. Its twin brother, Ryzen 5 1600AF version, is generally the same CPU. The only difference is lower base and boost frequency. If you are going to overclock your CPU, it doesn't matter. So basically they are equal. Choose the one that costs cheaper. The best all-round budget CPU is 2700 in my opinion. Its 16 threads provide excellent working performance for the money. On the other hand, it is also able to provide silky smooth 60 frames per second experience. But it needs to be overclocked, otherwise it won't show its true capabilities. Some people think that Ryzen 3 2500X and Ryzen 3 3300X are better gaming CPUs than 2600 and even 2700. But I do not agree with them. 2500X is based on 1 CCX, so all 4 cores and 8MB L3 cache are placed very close to each other, which reduces latency and improves performance. That is right, but 2600 has twice as much L3 cache, 16MB, and 50% more cores. These two factors totally eliminate any advantages of 2500X. Taking into account the fact that this 4-core CPU costs as much as 2600, I would not even bother considering it. 3300X is a different story. This one is based on a newer Zen 2 architecture and also has 16MB of L3 cache, which in combination with all 4 cores placed in 1 CCX results in a very impressive gaming performance indeed. The average frame rate provided by 3300X is close to 3600. The problem is that 1% low and 0.1% low frame rate are often on par with 2600 and sometimes even worse. So 3300X provides similarly smooth overall gaming experience to 2600, and in some games the latter one performs even better. If you are not a competitive player who demands as high frame rates as possible, 3300X is not the CPU you should consider. While 2700 usually provides smoother experience than 3300X. So it is definitely a better CPU, not only for games but for any kind of tasks, including professional working applications. Its 8 cores will let your PC be relevant for a much longer time than 4 stronger cores of 3300X. Despite its great single-core performance, its multi-core performance is far less impressive and loses even to 2600, not talking about 2700. Ryzen 5 3600 is a bit too expensive nowadays, but it still remains the best medium-range gaming CPU from AMD. Very good level of single-core performance, decent multi-core performance. What else can you desire? Well, maybe slightly less scary price tag would be a perfect addition to these qualities. There are two more Zen 2 6-core CPUs. The first one is 3500X, which is basically the same as 3600 minus SMT. Some might think that it is not a big deal. What good these hyperthreads can do? Actually, they significantly improve your gaming experience by smoothing it. SMT may increase the average frame rate by 10 to 20%, but the most important thing is that it makes frame time a lot more stable. This means more responsive controls and less stutters and hitches during gameplay. You may not notice it at first, but the longer you play, the more noticeable it becomes. The other one, Ryzen 5 3500, is even less capable CPU, as it also contains twice as less L3 cache in comparison with 3600 and 3500X. This means lower frame rate and, what's more important, less stable frame time. 3500 is the least appealing of all Zen 2 desktop CPUs in my opinion. The best premium all-round CPU is 3700X. It can manage any kind of task with relative ease, whether these are working applications or games. This is the most optimal choice for those who are seeking for the multi-purpose CPU nowadays. The best gaming CPU is 5600X. Excellent single-core performance and 12 threads provide amazing gaming experience. No need to overclock its cores, just install it in your motherboard and get started. But this CPU is still very expensive. I would recommend to wait some time. If you are planning to upgrade either your CPU or the whole platform, cheaper non-X 5600 is probably coming in the first half of the next year. For those who are not willing to do compromises, super powerful 5950X is an excellent choice. One of the most expensive and the most powerful desktop CPU for today. 16 cores, 32 threads. This beast can handle any task you can think of. Its older brother, 3950X, is a great choice for working station as well. Though a cheaper 5900X is a better choice in my opinion. The problem is that currently it's very hard to find any Ryzen 5000 series CPU on sale, and the real prices for these CPUs are significantly higher than the MSRPs. That's why it is hard to recommend to buy one of these right now. We will probably see a broadening of model row in 2021, alongside with the increase of supplies. Hope this video was helpful. What CPU are you going to buy? Or you prefer to wait for some time? But for now, good luck until next time.